Evening, folks. Yeah, cracking day it's been today. Bit of a different backdrop, as you might have noticed. I've actually had a very rare day off today, and I'm that sort of relaxed. I couldn't be asked to drag my arse into office, so I've stayed at home, and everyone's promised to give me a bit of peace and quiet to have a chat with you a lot for an hour or so. So hope everyone's making the most of this weather at the minute. It's phenomenal. We don't get enough of it, to be honest with you. Temperatures are absolutely soaring, so I should imagine water temperatures are doing pretty well at the minute as well. Hopefully getting some good growth on all of your koi, and please do make the most of it. We know it's probably not going to be around for too long. So I'm just going to start first of all with a question I've had, a direct message. I'm on my phone at the minute, so I can't get into it. But I know it was relating to bottom drains and the sort of setup, sort of multi-feed setup running into a drum filter. Now, I think if I remember right, the guy in question is pulling about 8,000 litres an hour or something like that through his drum. And he's actually feeding from three sources. I think it was a mid-water feed, a bottom drain, and a skimmer. And I think the nuts of the question is asking if it should possibly be separating that up. My answer straight away is yes. He wants to be separating that up for sure because, in my opinion, if we're looking at flow rates, a bottom drain needs a minimum to be pulling at its maximum with sort of minimum debris settlement. We need to be pulling 17,000 litres an hour minimum. 18,000 litres an hour is around the maximum for the drain as well, to be honest. But you've got to be pulling at them flow rates. So considering you're pulling around 10,000 litres, whatever it was, and you've actually got three feeds coming into the drum, no, that's not, in my opinion, an efficient way of setting that system up, to be honest, because you just don't know, water's going to take the sort of easiest course. So if it's easier to pull from the skimmer line, it's sort of going to do that. I should imagine there'd be, unless there's a direct purge on the bottom drain, which is really important, you're probably going to be getting quite a bit of sediment build-up. While I'm on that topic, I think that's another thing that sort of gets missed from system design a bit these days, is actually setting up a full purge up. If you're running anything really, because if we even look at a Nexus, the height up to the sort of Nexus inlet is not that far below water level. So when you're actually even pulling the valve on that and letting the water flood back in, it's not working under the pressure. It's only probably got about a foot of height at most pushing down in order to create the purge. So yeah, I think it's a missed principle on fitting a separate purge. So sort of coming out of the bottom drain, fitting a T-piece as low as possible, and then obviously teeing off so part goes straight to waste and the other bit to your filter system, just so even if it's daily, weekly, even at the very least, you can get down there, pull that drain, give that a really heavy purge, and make sure that it's that drain run is as clear as possible, because that's a big place where we can get some nasties living, trichodina, things like that, bacterial buildup, whatever it is. Not a great spot. So for sure, in that instance with the system we described at the beginning there, I would definitely look at splitting that up and just having the main bottom drain feed running through the filter system, and making use of the other two another way. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say there you want to be increasing the flow rate through the system, because that's relative to the pond size and the turnover rate you're trying to achieve. So you don't want to pull too much through the main filter run and drop the retention time too much and possibly get a lack of performance there. So it's all about balance. Balancing it up, getting it right. But that's my opinion. I'm not even a big fan of the whole setup. Since drum filters come into the market with all these multiple inlets, it seems to just become acceptable to have two bottom drains, three bottom drains running into one drum filter, and you do it because the cost of the drum filters are so high. If you're asking me, you consider the price of the drum filter, I would be rather running the individual drains to a Nexus or to a sieve or something like that, and making use of it properly. And actually, I think in all honesty, a few core sort of principles of system design have sort of gone out the window in recent years. It is very much about the plug and play these days, which is great, because for a lot of people who don't understand system design, it's convenient and the systems are superb. But yeah, like I say, I think basic principles go clean out the window, and we're not looking at these important bits such as retention time, getting flow rates based on what you're actually doing rather than just the concept of, oh, I need to be turning over as much water as possible. And yeah, setting things up right based on the needs and what's needed in the pond, because it is something, to be honest, in all the years I've been doing this, the systems that you sort of get quoted, the flow rates that get quoted, you know, when you're buying, and I was going to say Nexus, first thing that pops to mind again, but I'll get onto a few more other filters. But if we look at a Nexus, obviously quoted it, you know, this Nexus is good for up to 4,000 gallons of water or whatever it is. I really don't know where manufacturers get these quotas from, to be honest with you. They've got to give the public guidelines. Yes, you know, we need some rough idea, but that Nexus, is that based on flow rates it's passing through? Because the biological capacity can change. You can go from 50 litres up to 200 in a Nexus. So when it comes to stuff like that, we're looking at, I'm going way off topic here, I just realised, but when you're looking at stuff like that, you know, system design and the system capacity and the filter you're having should be based around the needs and requirements, which in most cases, I believe, is more related to feeding than anything else. When you're looking at filtration requirements, stocking levels, all the rest, it is heavily governed by feeding, because that's what really, really screws things up. I can heavily stock a pond that's not being heavily fed and get so many more fish in there and have them kept and everything in check. The minute you start hitting them hard with the food, very quickly it falls to pieces. So it's every time should be based around feeding capacity when you're looking at system design and stuff like that. And yeah, even worse is when we move sort of down and you get to the sort of ready-made box filters and things like that. Now, I'll openly say I'm not going to slag box filters off, because the concepts there, they work as a filtration unit. They do the job, but they've got to be done within the limits of what they're actually capable of doing. And when you actually see the sort of quotas on some of these boxes and what they're capable of doing, you know, I saw one from one brand a couple of weeks ago, and this thing was tiny, really tiny, with a tiny bit of filter media. And it's being quoted for a 1,500 gallon pond, and I was absolutely gobsmacked and slightly disgusted, to be honest with you. That's sort of being put out there, because yes, it might handle the kind of flow rates you can put through a 1,500 gallon pond, and the UV that was attached to it might have been capable of working for that amount of water, but biologically that'd be keeping a handful of fish with very little food without absolutely falling to bits. So yeah, take what sort of you see on them boxes, manufacturers' guidelines, with a pinch of salt, and actually just sit down and look at, you know, what you want from your pond. Am I just looking to keep a nice collection of fish where, you know, feeding is not going to be that heavy? Or am I looking to really grow and raise these, because your setup will be very, very different according to your requirements there. Anyway, so right, folks, let me have a quick look through some of this evening's questions. Obviously, we've got a backlog to work through as ever as well. So Martin Smith there. What are your thoughts on weekly treats of mussels and prawns? So got absolutely nothing against that. I get that, you know, for you guys, this is a hobby, something you want to enjoy. It is a very enjoyable process, hand feeding your koi. There's absolutely no detriment to the fish in doing that whatsoever. It's a very highly digestible, probably good quality source of protein that they're going to get into their body there. So absolutely go for it. I wouldn't personally, just because of the scale. You can probably see there, that's just not viable. And my main focus is making sure that the food they're having is completely balanced, so they don't actually need anything else. So yeah, absolutely go for it. You're going to do no harm, and I think from a hobbyist perspective, that's a really enjoyable period that you can spend with your koi, and I'm all for that, to be honest with you. So yeah, happy days. Get on with it. Get them fish growing. Let's see if we can get that one off. Just bear with me, folks. Yeah, just mentioned there, look, Pete Waddington always said, one button adrenaline. To be honest, that's where I got the concept from. Reading Peter Wallington's book made complete and utter sense to me when I saw it, and that was from a day and an age where, people are either making their own filter system or systems were generally not the cost that a drum filter is these days. Them things are damn expensive, and when you consider it's only a lot of the time the mechanical part, unless you're getting the combi unit. We've sort of shifted, and it's all about working around having that drum rather than doing what's best for the whole system. And I think you've probably gathered by now my sort of mentality is doing what's best for the fish and the system. Let's just have a look here. I think that's a good question. What would you say a good flow rate is through a 320 Nexus? I'm running 320 via its own drain, my 10k pump, 7,750 gallons. So again with that one, flow rates, I'm going to be looking. I don't like to pass too much water through a Nexus. I like to get a good dwell time in there. On that basis, I would be looking at getting through each filter sort of once every 2 hours. Obviously, doubling up on having 2 filters on 2 drain lines, and doing that, you're going to have your pond turnover at once an hour, which is fairly nice there. So let's just do a bit of maths on that. Just bear with me. The calculator. I'm just going to drop Steve, obviously, in the background. I think probably quite good. I've seen Chris from Elite Koi's watching, so if he's free, send him a link over, Steve, and let's get him on for half an hour. So we've got 7,750 gallons. By 2. So we're looking about 17,500 litres through each pond. So happily you could run at 17,500 litres through each filter and get a decent flow rate. The fact you're running at 10k 80%, I would probably look at running the 2 10,000s flat out, in all honesty, because you're going to get a bit of friction loss and stuff through the pipes and drop that off. And I think you're going to be running spot on there. So you're getting the whole pond turnover that once every couple of hours, and that's absolutely fine. I've said before, in most scenarios, that's going to work an absolute treat and be more than sufficient, to be honest with you. So happy days. Let's have a look. Just bear with me, folks. It's quite hard operating on a smaller screen. Right, one question here. How long does it take your filters to catch up when you increase your feed above 20 degrees C? Right, so with filters, it's always the case. The faster the warmer the temperature, the faster it's going to catch up. But that's really going to depend on your increase. Now, if I use my own ponds as an example, I can hit an increase. I can often see the water probably go off, or maybe change a little bit for 3 or 4 days. The absolute most when I'm above 20 degrees, and we fly on from there. So it is normal. You are going to have a bit of a lull and a break in things there. But just bear with it. Now then, Chris.
Now then, Ricky, how are you doing?
All right. I thought, if you sat there watching, you might as well join in.
I see you've been in that polytunnel today. Look at you.
Not today. I've been putting my feet up.
Ah, me too.
You've been out on boat?
No, not today. So I've been catching up. I just put a video out of me interacting with the koi. Great to spend a bit of time with them today and get them being back friendly, and really enjoyed it. So
perfect. And you've had Yoss over again. Well, we both had Yoss over again recently, haven't we? We've got a new Koi Talk video coming out with him this week, I think, a new podcast, which was another good one, to be honest.
Yeah, I've got to catch up with that one. Yoss has brought some recommended products over to Elite Koi, so we've got some new gear from the Koi doctor Martin Lemens, including books. It's great to see Yoss. He's brought some microscopes over, so we're going to move forward with the Koi Academy idea.
Yeah, nice.
I think there's a big benefit there for everybody.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've identified it's an area of the industry that is really, really sort of lacking in education and support all round, really.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, what else have we been doing with Yoss? Just the one problem that seems to be smoothing down now, the one that was identified, doing the bacterial water analysis and the CV test. So
with one of your clients.
Yeah, we're over the worst of that one now, and hopefully want to amend the fish again now under the help and advice of Yoss. So yeah, looking good.
Perfect. So I just want to remind everyone watching, it's great. I am getting more and more DMs by the day, which I am absolutely happy to answer where possible and time permitting. I'll always try my best. But what I would plead with everybody, anybody out there, dealers such as Chris who want to come on, we have got a few people lined up for the next few weeks. We've managed to get some scheduling booked in, but please, guys, as much as possible, if you've got questions, even if it's just one question you want to get out there, it'd be really great to get you on that we can sort of talk it through, because when we're spending time doing it, I would love as many people as possible to get a rub from the advice given. So yeah, please, if you're interested in coming on or you've got some queries, drop us a line and get us booked in. Like I say, if you're just in for 10 minutes, one question, it'd be absolutely great. And I appreciate you coming on, Chris, as and when you can.
Yeah, no worries.
Right, I've just caught one question, which is one I can certainly have a good answer about. Sorry, Koi, how are you doing? Do you increase food by weight of fish or size or amount? So my feeding, the way I learned to feed koi was all done very visually, as my whole sort of methodology in keeping koi has been done. And that came from the time I spent in Japan actually working over the summer. I've always subconsciously picked up on a lot of the stuff they've done and lessons that I've been given over the years, but that was when it was really seriously sort of, holy shit, this is how they're doing it, and really absorbing the way they do. And obviously when you consider the fish are being kept in mud ponds all summer, it's not very easy to see what's going off, and there's very little you can actually do in there. So you're looking for different observation traits, and I do believe this is why the Japanese are so successful at doing this, because they truly understand from looking what's going off. And this is, for me, I think you can go down two routes with koi keeping. I'm going off topic a little bit here, but you can go down two different routes. You can, if it's what makes you tick, and neither of these are wrong, it's just what works best. I think the most successful way to be a really successful koi keeper is to learn it visually, to see really what's going off, understand as much as possible, and let the koi tell you what's going off, and then use whatever methods at your disposal, scientific, non-scientific, if there's problems, to sort of diagnose it and adjust it. Or then there is the more scientific approach that you can be data-driven, and that applies across water management, feeding, growth, all them things, if that's the way you want to do it and it's the way that makes you tick. However, I do think koi is all about the passion that you draw from seeing these things, and the way you truly, what data cannot tell you is how the color condition is looking, is how the skin luster is looking. Them kind of things, it can't. It could tell you how much weight the fish has gained, but they might have been gaining too much weight. When you actually look at them, they might be really fat and disproportionate.
Yeah.
So as much as you do it, for me, the passion just over, it's all about looking, and this is what sorry folks, I keep getting distracted. I've got to come here, Arthur. Come here. I am at home, so the little my fish companion keeps jumping in. Say hello to everybody.
Hello.
He is. I think he's coming in. He keeps raiding fridge and cupboards. So I'm all for doing things visually, and that was reinforced when the time I spent in Japan over the summers. When you're keeping fish in a mud pond, like I say, we can't just pull the fish out and do a scrape. You can't pull the fish out and weigh it to adjust the feeding. None of this stuff is possible. You could water test, but it's not really going to make a difference, because the most you can do in one of them ponds is get some water trickling through it.
Interestingly, I've seen it twice over the last couple of weeks where the fish have been overfed. So all of water practices are good, the feeding routines are good, but looking at the fish, they're too heavy. They're carrying too much weight on them. And one of the autopsies that we performed on one of the koi that passed because of the CEV, a lot of body fat around the intestines, which can't do the koi. any good whatsoever.
No. Well, it don't do anybody any good, Chris, does it?
No. Apparently,
I heard Jos was giving you a lesson about that as well.
Well, I've got Jos inside my head at the minute. It's about plant-based diets. So, yeah. But he's right in what he says. It's yeah.
So sorry, coming back to the question. So yeah, on feeding. So, and it was always something I was curious about, is how is a breeder actually gauging and doing the feeding when they're in mud pond, because they're not just left to nature. Automatic feeders are set up on most mud ponds because some are so remote. They do get checked daily, but obviously you can't feed multiple times a day up in mud ponds, because trust me, I've done the routes. It takes an age. A typical working day in summer in Japan, you sort of up 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. You're getting out sometimes maybe straight to the mud ponds, and that's when you do the first round of checking everything over. Fry ponds, Nisai ponds, getting everything done. Then you get back, you actually start work, so to speak, at that point. So it might be spawning, culling, whatever jobs are going on sort of throughout the day. By lunchtime, because it's so hot, honestly, I was absolutely wiped out every day when I was there. It was horrendous. I'm not used to that sort of climate. So a lot of the restaurants, you sort of go and have lunch, and the first time it happened, absolutely, I just didn't know what to do with myself. We just shut the doors on this room and all went to sleep in the restaurant we were in. So just absolutely, it was surreal. And then got up, finished the culling, and then at that point we're back on the second round of checking ponds, feeding mud ponds, and yeah, it's sort of like eat, sleep, koi, repeat. We're just on and on and on every day. But yeah, get back to it again. All very, very visual. So the feeding, like I say, I was dead curious, how are we adapting this? And this isn't relevant to the question, but I think it's interesting to know. The first thing we was looking at, spent a lot of time with Fujo at the end of the days, just going and sitting. So we'll just go sit, manually feed some food into the feeding ring and see how the fish actually behaved and reacted to the food. Just very, very simply, if we chuck some food on and they were absolutely ravenous, bouncing for it within seconds, we might suspect there that, we might need to start looking at increasing the feeding. Likewise, if we put food on and there's absolutely no activity and they're not interested, might think possibly needs to be decreasing or just maintaining where we are, but certainly not making too many drastic changes and sticking it up. Then the next sort of biggest one was the actual colour of the water, or so to say the turbidity of the water more than anything. Water colour was a completely separate conversation. And by that, just naturally looking for, you could see when the fish were actually heavily rummaging in the bottom of the pond because the plumes of mud were coming up from the bottom. So the pond looked really sort of heavy with the mud in the water. You could see that. And at that point, we just suspect, so they're obviously hungry. They're looking for more food because they're actively really rummaging. So we probably need to increase the feeder settings to feed more food through that to stop them rummaging as much. Really, really, really simple. Just two ways, but I'm monitoring. But that obviously all relies on visually checking and reading what's going off. Pure and simple. So how I do it, when I sort of emulated that in my feeding programs over here. So I took a little bit away because at the time they were all, Fujo was obsessed around sort of every 2 hour feeding window at 24, 25 degrees. And dropping that off to around every 4 hours if we're hitting around 20, 22 degrees. And I do physically see a big change in their metabolism when between them two temperatures and how much food they'll actually consume and their activity at them temperatures. So, depending on that, so I'm feeding every 2 hours as it stands because the water's absolutely bubbling. And all I'm doing is I looked for a timed window. So I basically say, depending on the system and how well I know the system can perform, I want each feed, I want the fish to be eating for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't often go above 10 minutes. So I hit that 5 minute window and I get the settings on the feeder. I keep adjusting it daily, observing until I eventually get to those fish eating every 5 minutes. And what I'm very careful to do when I'm observing, and you need to be careful of this, is that the fish don't really know that you're there, so they behave naturally. So what I'll do is I'll pick a feed that's easy to observe every day. sort of like, midday, 2 o'clock, something like that, and go 5 minutes before, sit in the fish house out of the way where I can see as many ponds as possible, and as the feeders go off, I time them. So obviously, at the point where I'm at 5 minutes every day, I keep watching that, and if I get to a point where all of a sudden it's taking 4 minutes to clear, I add an increase to the feeder, not necessarily all at once. I might do it in sort of 2 batches. And that's how I just visually keep monitoring, as well as obviously monitoring what the fish are doing as well. That's very important. So if they're taking too long to eat it, I'm going to ease it back. Or likewise, even if they are eating it within 5 minutes, but they look really fat, I'm going to investigate that part as well and look to change something. But in all that, the bit you've got to be very careful of is knowing that your pond has got the capacity to handle just making them adjustments to the feeding like that, because there is going to be a balance and a toss up in all that scenario. It might just be that you make the increases, the fish are eating it within 5 minutes, but your water's falling apart, which you've got to be really, really mindful of. But yeah, I'm just really guided by what they're doing and making the adjustments according to that. And as you guys have seen through the content, it does work, and I believe it's really the best way of doing it. You can do it by weight, but I think that's quite a tedious process. And in how I do it commercially, I could get away with it because I've always got the fish within a certain, as Chris will vouch for, there's always a very narrow size range in each pond, Chris, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like with the heel sawyers at minute, it's very, very tightly between sort of 35 up to 40 cm. There's not a lot of variance within that. So I could easily get an average weight. I think for you guys watching in a pond at home, each increase to really get it accurate, you'd have to net every fish individually. And it's no good doing it off of the calculator. I've used the sort of mass calculations and charts that are out there. When you actually weigh them, then things are way out.
Yeah.
So, if you consider that you're midway through season and feeding's all about building, you don't want a big stress event like having to stop, starving them for 3 or 4 days to then catch them, cause that stress, probably have a recovery period, start building. By the time you've done that, you're probably missing 2 weeks of your growing season. So, like I say, I think to be accurate, you would have to catch every fish because you'll have a big size variance in your pond, and it's really going to be a pain in the arse.
I've got a question, Ricky. So,
go on.
All through the spring, we've gotten people to gradually increase the feed and give them tips on how to increase it, the amount to feed. At what point and how do we reduce the feed come the end of the summer?
It's probably just staggering it down. I mean, for me, typically, it's not. I obviously get to the point where I want to harvest the pond, so I just decrease a little bit, then stop, give them about 3 days starving, and go from there. But yeah, I think if coming out of summer, you'll probably notice if you're not heated, so you're in control. This is where this all gets a lot trickier because you're being bounced around by the elements constantly. Yeah. And one of the biggest things in a feeding program, and to get the absolute maximum performance out of it, you need the stability with the water temperature, because like I said at the beginning, their appetite will change so much between 24 degrees and 20 degrees.
Yeah.
Or 20 and 25. Don't sound a lot, just 5 degrees, but it's like a 25% change when you look at it that way.
And I guess it'll go back to observation because the fish behaviour will change.
Exactly.
It cools down, so you can, you can gauge how much you need to reduce it. I just think it's one that people need to start thinking about. We're very good at getting them feeding and getting as much in them, but at some point we've got to ease back off it.
It's a really good point, Chris. That side coming out, it's not the side we want to talk about. We like to be feeding them and getting them on it all the time, but that time period does come. But everything it's gradual, gradual. Just start easing it back. Change, even when you're changing diets, even if it's the same brand food, it's always good not to just go one to the other. Mix it a little bit, change it, let them just everything adapt gradually, and I think they're a lot happier from it.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
they are. Right, let's see what else we've got sat in here, Chris. Oh, here we go. I think this is one we can both add a bit to. DT Koi. How are your golden corn? How are they doing with their colour? Have you got any left, Chris?
I've got one left, and it is it's one of the silver ones, and there's absolutely no Kanoko appearing on it whatsoever. But I'm still confident that it's going to.
How big is it?
How big?
Yeah.
probably about 25, 26 centimetre.
Okay.
So it's a good size, lovely body shape, but it's kept indoors, no natural light. So whether or not that's having an effect on,
I think it would, because the red pigments obviously will be driven by UV.
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to have an impact. And size, I think I've said this all along. I believe that size is playing a massive part in that Kanoko development, because in order to truly get it, we've got to get it stretching out to get the fullering progressing.
Yeah.
So in regards to mine, I think we've got, how many have I got left now? About 6. Quite a few different types, and I mean, looking really, really well, to be honest with you. They're the ones you might have saw. I just did the Karashigoi selection video the other day. So they've been stalling for a couple of months because the pond they were in has been massively overstocked, just holding fish. But I mean, colour-wise, looking superb. That's developing all the time. A couple of the plain white ones that had developed yellow pattern, the colour's just gone a little bit softer in the heat, which I think is normal. I'm not feeding any colour food in that pond either. It's just running naturally. But I think Chris will vouch. There's some stunning examples sat in there, including the one gold, the true gold example with the red Kanoko that's looking absolutely out of this world.
There's one of each one, isn't there? I'm particularly impressed with that whiter, the paler one. But the definition,
I'm a big fan of them white ones.
It's beautiful. And I think the best one that I had, colour-wise, was the one that I thought was a Ginrin Ichiba. And wow, when that thing started colouring up, it absolutely went. Beautiful fish. So I'll see if I can get a video of that for you.
No, fascinating variety. I'm still absolutely loving them. It's been a bit harder to get hold of them this year, shipping and one reason or another, but I'm going to be on that one at the back end of this year. So fingers crossed we'll get a nice new batch of Tosai in on them next year and can have a really, really strong growing season with them and get a few more back into the market, because Taniguchi's still going hard at them. It's just, like I said, been more of a logistics problem this year with those.
Well, definitely pencil me in for some. Definitely.
Sam. Right, what we got here? Hi everyone. How often do you check KH? Any form of automatic monitoring dosing you're aware of or use? Right, probably guessed by my whole simplistic approach that this whole automatic thing is not going to be a topic of where I can add a lot of value. However, my KHs are checked every 2 or 3 days in the fish houses, certainly this time of year, just because of how heavily we're burning KH. So I think it's advisable in a general hobbyist setup to do that once a week at the very least. KH for me, if I could have one test kit, I'd pick KH every time, because it's not always a given, but I know if the KH is relatively stable, most of the time the rest of the ponds fall in line. But likewise, I know if the KH is gone, very quickly see how the pond starts sort of falling apart a little bit. So what advice do you give out on that, Chris?
The filter crash from losing your KH will cause you all sorts of problems, including
it's
dosing wise, we're quite fortunate. So always check your source water, because everything we need is in the source water. So as far as dosing goes, I think our KH is usually riding between 9 and 10 degrees. So if it's lower in the pond, then we just need to add more fresh water to bring it up.
Yeah. I do know you can get dosing pump setups and all that. That's just not something I would go near. It's not my style of koi keeping. If it is what you're after, there are people out there who'll no doubt know and be able to help. But for me, that's something you want to be doing manually and adjusting manually, and not just leaving it to something to do it for you. Because again, it just ties into that whole observation part and knowing what's going off in your own pond, which is crucial, I believe.
So I asked the guys in the group today what advice they would give anybody just starting out, and until they joined the group, very few of them knew about KH and the importance of it. But that's coming up as a top tip. Check it weekly to keep the pond healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one, so let's just get that one off. Do you sell mixed Tosai to the public or just the trade? So yes, Chris does. I do not. Just to reiterate again, guys, I've got too much respect. It's a line that I drew in the sand when I started Koi Wholesale. That I'm on that side of the fence. I'm working for the likes of Chris and everybody else who I deal with and supply, and I don't want to be on that side of the fence competing against them, because that just doesn't sit very well with me. I also look at obviously business setups and all the rest. It'd be very easy for me to get online, start pumping fish out to everybody left, right, and centre. But that would destroy everything I'd built. I also believe if I was on that side of the fence, it wouldn't be as glamorous as many people might think it would be, because time is a real issue. And I see the level of commitment when you want to be a good koi dealer. Chris will agree with this. There's a level of time, that you want to give to each client, to problems, getting emotionally involved as well as sort of physically involved in stuff. And it takes a lot of time up. And even now, I struggle getting through what direct messages and stuff I get off of people. So for me, this isn't just about pumping fish out to people. It's giving the whole service end in end. And this is why I spend my time working with the likes of Chris and all the other dealers, is so that everyone I'm involved with, I know, is given a good level of service, helping people. We're all on a similar wavelength, and that way we reach more people and actually add benefit and value to more people than I could physically do on my own. Yeah. So so long answer to that question, which was quite a simple one, but that is why I don't do it. And there we have it, guys. It'll stay that way for as long as I'm doing this, to be honest with you. Yeah. So you can often get me, sometimes if it's the advice side and whatnot, like I say, I'm on the DMs and things like that. And often, at dealers' events when they're having them, when Chris has his events and bits and bobs, I do make every effort to get out there and meet and see as many people as I can. But, regards my fish, whether they come from me or one of the guys I'm working with, it's still the same fish and still the same product. And like I say, we're really keen and focused on who we work with to make sure that we're, there's good service being provided all round.
Yeah.
And that's that one. Right, this is a long one, so let's get it up on the screen. And it's just going to take us a minute, folks, to read through this. Have a read through as well, Chris. Hi, Rick, I've seen lots and lots of posts across social media with people getting hacked off with the Nexus regarding fines, mechanical side of it getting blocked up, and end up getting rid for a drum or keeping the Nexus and putting a Draco in it. I want the drum combi for this reason. It's low maintenance, it does a great job. With the Nexus, you could go for the Sieve or something beforehand. By the time you've done that, you can nearly buy them. Okay, I get the point, and this is dependent truly, what you're looking for out of your pond. I see the biggest thing there coming out of this, and I know it is a real obsession with hobbyists in general, is fines. Yeah, and what are we actually talking about when we get fined? Because fines, to me, real fines cause clouding in the water. We're not talking about the odd bit of floating shit in the pond or something like this. It's when you've actually got hazy water, and that, to me, I mean, I don't have an issue with it, to be honest. And like my water, a bit off or even pea green if I can get away with it, but I think fundamentally, it's not a reason to cop out and get a drum. I think this is more to do with the potential setup of the Nexus. I've seen that for years when I was working in retail. Common thing with a lot of filter systems, UVs, performance of anything to do with flow rates, and then getting that retention time. But this can be an issue with any pond. A decent system, best system in the world. If you've got KH problems, you're then going to start having water problems as well. Yeah. All come in hand in hand. So it's preference. If you feel like a drum's right for you, go for it. By all means, I'm not telling anybody not to do anything. I'm just giving my opinions when we do this and looking at the best ways. My concern with this in general is doing things that work for the masses and not just for the people who have got the budget for a drum filter. It's about, making everybody the most successful koi keeper they can be. And also by documenting what I do, showing how simple it can all be done and the results you can achieve. So if that's the case and you feel like you are struggling, and, a drum you feel like it's the way for you, then go for it by all means. But personally, I know you can achieve superb water with a Nexus. It's just got to get set up properly. And over the years, that's the biggest thing I've seen, is those systems not being set correctly, and then as a result, not performing correctly. Not just with Nexus, with many different filter systems.
the one common thing that we come across with Nexus and fines is there's too much water being pulled through the Nexus. One end is being pulled straight back out the other. There's been a couple of important updates to the Nexus and the 220 Plus, particularly the Easy, the sensor chamber now is K1 Micro, which really does pull out the fines as well. And of course, the Tempest. If you want crystal clear water, you'll not go far wrong with the Tempest. Even the systems in the shop where we're running drums, combis, we've fitted the Tempest for that clarity.
Yeah, I think probably one of the big bits. This is what I've been saying a lot. Is I think people don't appreciate the huge part that biological filtration plays in mechanical filtration, because the sort of particle size we're talking about that causes clouding and hazing in the water is nothing that a drum filter can actually strip or remove.
No.
It's below the micron size of the drum filters. So you actually rely on the parts of your biological filter to do that job. So yeah, it's an interesting one as to why that would be. But I would want to know, in a pond that's performing, say, with a Nexus as a sole filter, I'd want to know more about the setup if it wasn't right. And do believe I could get that cracked and get it nailed with the right setup, in all honesty. And I've seen it over years when I used to sell really basic systems. One of the worst ones, we never used to sell for really sort of basic ponds, the pressurized filters that come as a kit with a pump. Because they were the absolute worst. What you'd get is greatly people oversizing the filter, but the pump that was included in the box was always matched to the filter. So the minute they oversized the filter and bought the kit, they oversized the pump. So they were passing far too much water around the system and not getting the retention times and stuff they needed, and the filter never performed properly.
Yeah.
So
sure, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm not saying either or. I've just explained there. I'm all about making my advice working for the masses. Drum filters certainly have their purpose. In the ponds that I've got, my growing ponds, don't get me wrong, they do my head in. Now they've got older, the amount of maintenance they're actually needing to keep them operational is shocking. But they weren't one of the highest quality units at the time. If I was looking now and having seen how Profi drums actually manufactured and the quality difference, and the companies like Oaza as well, I'd be, if I was doing it, that's the price level that I'd be going for, because I've not seen one under that shows me longevity and reliability, personally.
Yeah, it's definitely. You've got to do the maths, haven't you? You've got to work out if you're getting a combi. How much media can you get in the outer chamber of a Nexus? How much media is the combi going to hold? You're probably going to need a separate bio chamber to get the same amount of media onto a system. So, I remember the first year that I put I took a Nexus 320 off my own pond, and I put a combi on it, a big combi, and I was so disappointed for the first year because I'd taken that Shore filter away, and I had to go through effectively new pond for the year. And it was
Yeah, that's actually good. I'm just flicking through the comments there. Good point. I feel the problems with fines come from the window. From the top, you can't see any fine with good clarity through the window. I absolutely agree with that. It's looking at something that's just a natural part of being in a pond and a body of water.
If you've got a window in your pond and you have the lights in the pond as well, all that does is highlight all the get the lights out and put them above the water. You completely change that viewing experience. So, and that's whether the water's going through a drum or
this is it.
So,
just for me, I wouldn't be letting that guide my decision on what I'm going to install and do and all the rest of it. It's just bottom of the pile for me. So long as the water's clear and you can actually see the fish, happy days. But yeah, each to their own with that one. But yeah, good point, that one. Right, let's see what else we've got, Chris. This isn't as easy on my phone, I must say. Any interesting points being raised in your group at the minute, Chris? I've got to say I'm not very caught up with it as it stands.
yeah, everybody's steady. Everybody's enjoying the summer. I think that finally the temperatures are rising. People are getting stuck into the summer routines. A lot of trialing going on with the new products, which the feedback from the group's very, very important, so we can decide which ones we're going to carry on with and advise people the best way.
Yeah.
One that I think we should devote a bit of time to speaking at some point is carp pox. There's a big misunderstanding over carp pox, even though at this time of the year it's not manifesting itself in the fish so much. But certainly for a future one, I think that would be a good topic to discuss.
Yeah. Actually, that'd have been a good one when Jos was here. I might leave that one on there for him, to be honest. But just another good point here I can see, Ray. So I've only just got a drum, and the only reason I'm swapping from a Nexus the drum is because I'm a lorry driver and work away all week, and I'm not home to do filter cleaning the week. Okay, completely see the point in that, but honest to God, knowing how mine perform, and I've got a problem. One of the problems I have with mine, as well as the motors just failing constantly, which is a giant pain in the arse. This is quite and I don't know if anyone else out there has suffered this. Get quite a bit of snail across the ponds and filters and all the rest of it, and I get tiny fragments of snail egg pass through the cleaning pump into the nozzles.
Not the nozzles
on the drum. And my God, and we're talking here, they probably need to be serviced twice a week at the very minimum. And even then, there'll be periods with a mist. And what that causes then very quickly is the areas of the drum aren't getting cleaned properly when that nozzle's not working. And before we know it, the drums failed because it's not been cleaning properly. So unfortunately, I'd possibly be more frightened of leaving a drum for a week. Maybe not so much in a steady sort of nicely controlled pond, but I'd be more scared of leaving one of them for a week than I would a Nexus or a Nexus Auto or something like that.
I had this conversation with a customer yesterday, and he was considering a drum, and I said, "Why?" He said, "I'm going away on holiday, and I've got nobody to look after the pond." I said, "Why not just put an auto kit on your Nexus?"
Yeah,
problem sorted. It's for a fraction of the cost of investing in a drum. A good solution. And again, we've got one of them working at the shop, which I can show you. So if anybody wants to see it working, I've got one there that we can press the buttons on.
Yeah. So and again, guys, when I'm talking about these things, nothing I say, I'm not selling anything to anybody. This is no motivation. I have no ties with anybody. It's just my opinions I'm sharing for you to make the most of and make your own decisions. But yeah, mains fed, not from the pond. Fingers crossed. But like I say, I'm not in the best of frames with drum filters at the minute because they are a giant pain. I do admit, where they come from was in aquaculture, where we're talking stocking levels that would blow any of our minds and feeding levels that would do us so. And when you're looking at that amount of mechanical debris, and even looking at the amount of mechanical debris I get from the systems, I am struggling to see any other filter that could possibly handle that in the same way. When I renovate my quarantine houses, hopefully this year, if we get around to it, I'm going to be installing sieves on those because, again, I do genuinely believe the system setup I've got in mind could work absolutely flawlessly and provide even lower maintenance than a drum or anything like that. So the plan I've got is those ponds that are going to be, I think about 1,500 gallon, they're going to be in the end. I'm going to feed the bottom drain to a sieve and run the sieve straight over a shower. Because right there, that's going to allow me to give maximum pull on the bottom drain. Because these are going to be growing ponds at this point, so heavily stocked, heavily fed. Maximum pull on the drain. Fit in a purge before the sieve as well, so I can obviously pull and flush the drain if I do slow the flow rate down. Up over the shower, so that's going to give maximum performance to that filtration line there, and then I'm actually going to side feed out of the tank and into a Nexus. So at that point there, I've got the sort of mechanical filtration from the Nexus that the Easy provides. It's going to be cleaner water passing in. And then the biological capacity, it's going to be the Nexus 300 or so up to 300 litres of media. And I seem to think that is going to be a really, really flawless system. And Again, I don't know current prices on stuff, but I seem to think I'll probably get all that for the price of a high quality drum unit.
Easily, yeah. I mean, the new pond at the shop, we put a sieve on it. Half feed, a 20,000 litre feeding over the shower, 10,000 through an advanced filter. And we could pull about 27,000 litres through that sieve. And there's nothing mechanical. It runs every day. We've got
that's
cleaner. Hose it away.
What I do really for me, that's the ultimate, because there's like I say, the headache I'm having with the drum filters is crazy. It might be a pretty unique scenario, but the motor's failing is not. Hence why, again, you got to be looking at the quality units, and they don't come cheap.
No,
you really don't. Right, I'm just going to nip into some of the older questions, Chris. Let's see what we got here. What are your thoughts on the Hajiro variety? Go on, Chris.
Yeah, I'll leave this one to you.
You're not a fan then?
Well, if maybe no, it's not something that I'm massively familiar with, or it wouldn't be on my.
Let's face it. I don't think you've probably seen many, like many people haven't, because they are a truly rare beast. We're talking full blown Hajiro with the white tip fins. They are, honestly, when you get them and get them right, a bit of size to them as well, they are absolutely stunning. But I can probably count on two hands the amount I've seen in all the time that I've been doing this. Rare sort of mystical beast, them ones, to be honest.
Yeah, it's seen the true one, definitely.
Big fan. I do truly believe with any variety. I think sometimes when people are saying I'm not a big fan of that variety or that, it's all to do with exposure. So it's possibly that they've not seen, a Shisui at the best it can be, or an Asagi at the best it can be, as an example. When you are lucky enough to see that, it's a game changer. And it does change then your feelings and desire towards it. I'm very lucky that I have had exposure to most varieties across very, very high levels, and it does. You can't help but see them and go, wow, that's something we've actually been capturing. Me and Chris were in the studio. We've been doing some new videos for Koi Talk, just looking and appreciating some of the All Japan show winners that we feature in the magazine, and just talking through them, because I think any variety, when you see it at its best, will change your opinion of it.
Typically, what parents would you expect that variety to come from? Is there a collection, or is it...
a lot of it's Komonryu line, because I can't think of it. Was nobody actively breeding, so you obviously get Matsukao Baki, generally, obviously, is a Komonryu, and what people are tending to do is mix Matsukao Baki Komonryu together in one spawning, get both out of the spawning, but the best chances you've got of getting one of them, a proper Hajiro, is coming from that kind of spawning.
Yeah.
Matsukao Baki sort of going all in. And there's also the fine line that treads with the Benigois, the red type, Akahajiro. To be honest, I've seen more of them, because in Benigoi we don't want the white tip fins. You'll know it's a Benigoi spawning, but the minute technically it's got the white tip fins, we're talking Akahajiro. So just to fry everyone's brains a little bit more. But even them in the red type look pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Really nice. But good question, that one. Let's see what else we've got. Would you ever use propolis as a topical treatment or as a food additive? I can't remember if I answered this last week, but anyway, we'll go with it again. Propolis, I see no harm in using it as a topical treatment. I'm more for a simpler. I like the sort of iodine-based ones. For me, over the years, the simplicity of them. I don't like spraying too much onto the skin that can sort of stick and stay there. Treating any sort of superficial wound damage, I like to get them up, get any dead tissue, scales out of the way, and just disinfect the area, which iodine does nicely. Especially if you get a thick one like Tamidin, it does still cling around a little bit and do the job for me. Food additives, I'm not all that into chucking stuff into food. I think I said earlier in this episode, I'm more about getting the food and the balance of the food right in the first place and just going with that. If it's a good, high quality food, you shouldn't need to be adding anything to it. And I don't see any real benefits coming from that. So I'll let you give your opinion on that, Chris.
Well, a lot of the wound kits do come with spray propolis in, but they also come with the wound cleaner. So the wound cleaner is the important part there to clear the wounds out. You know, if you're removing scales, that the propolis is just, I think it's got a healing property of its own, which hopefully just helps the koi heal up when it's back in the pond.
Yeah,
I know it's available in most of the wound kits.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just flicking through questions.
Food additives. There is quite a few on the group. I've been adding a little bit of clay to their food, just for one feed a day, which they in the hope that the clay will help with the any bacteria in the gut and keep it nice and healthy, which seems to be going well. There's no adverse effects to that.
No, I think this is a good point, Chris. We've all got different styles of koi keeping.
Yeah.
You know, there's no rights and wrongs. You know, you're right adding clay. You know, there's no harm to it. So, do you see a benefit? Who knows? I'm not for it. You are. There's nothing wrong with any of that, and that's the thing. We're all develop our own styles. The breeders in Japan all have their own styles of koi keeping. You know, some you get your bigger guys like your Sakai's and stuff developing new techniques which filter down, but they've all roughly got variances of the ways that they're doing things or things that they're trying to use to create and get a competitive edge.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, some people might like to be more scientific with koi keeping, others won't. You might want koi keeping to be complex. If that's what you want to do, go for it. You know, so long as the end result is you're still looking after your koi properly, then happy days.
The results at the end of the season, don't they? If you've got a healthy koi, particularly in the spring, if you're coming out of winter and your koi are nice and healthy, whatever you've done in that lead up to that point has worked well for you.
Yeah, I think the important thing here is when you guys are out there looking for somebody to follow, to be your teacher, to give advice, whatever it is, or you're looking to for guidance, you've got to look around them and see the results. There's nothing more speaks than what's around them. You know, I'm documenting more and more what I'm doing for you guys, just so you see the results that are being delivered. I'm not here just chatting about something I think's a good idea, or I've read or on Google or seen on another YouTube video. Sharing my results, documenting it, being very open and honest about what I'm doing with it. If you want to take elements of it or you don't, fair play. So be it. Likewise, I think this is the case with dealers. You know, any dealer, the whole dealer is going to be governed, especially in like Chris's case and that kind of koi dealer where it's owned and operated by the owner on a daily basis. You're buying into that dealer style of koi keeping, you know. So when you go into the shop, you see how the fish are being cared for, you see what they've done, all the rest of it, and that should tell you whether or not, you know, if you're looking for somebody, like I say, to follow, whether or not they're going to be a good role model or a good guide for you.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and that's why I say, you know, the results speak for themselves. Certainly with the fish growth stuff as well, and that's why I'm keen just again keep documenting everything that I'm doing to show you how simple it's done. It's not for you when you. Yeah. There we go. Right, sorry, let's just have a quick look through here. Oh, here we go. I think Chris wants to know answer.
I hope he is. I really do hope he is.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, are you going to be releasing any of the down each toe side to your dealers after selection? Yes, a few. They do take some prizing out of my fingers, to be honest. Got some of the Nisai from last year. We're getting ready to come out and be put up for sale. But yes, toe side, there will be some of the Key Matsubas from the Botan line. There will be Benigoi, Ginrin Benigoi, and a few quite limited numbers of the Go Sankey pieces from the auctions that I've been buying as well. So do look out for them coming. And if Chris manages to get up to my place without Tracy, then he might get his hands on a few.
Yeah, well, I'm planning a visit very soon. So, yeah, and them Danichi, the Kibatsuba and the Benny guys. Wow, beautiful. I'd take them all if you'd let me.
Yeah, it's a hell of a pond, and I did post a video on Facebook of it the other day feeding. I mean, it's absolutely wild in there. Oh, there might be as well. I'm hoping a few of the Ginrin Karashigoi from the Yellow Monkey line. As well. So, right, interesting question here from Paul in Italy. How are you doing, Paul? Does strong sunlight here in Italy make Benny disappear? Some Anisai Sankey and Sanzai Tachibako are losing a lot of Benny. I think before I answer that one, Paul, it'd be great if you could get us some pictures. We can sort of come back to that one next week. So I just want to see how the Benny is actually being lost, to work out if it's something environmental or something just genetics, or that the actual colour itself just not being up to the job. So strong sunlight, it's not great for Benny. It can have an impact, yes, but might not necessarily be the cause. I don't really want to answer that and go into all the variables without seeing the exact problem you have. So if you want to drop me or Steve some pictures over, we'll certainly pick that up and discuss that for you next week. An interesting one from Phil. How you doing, Phil? What do you see the future to be in regards to filtration? I'm hoping not a lot changes. I mean, if we actually look at it, the biggest change, I suppose, in all the years been the drums on a mechanical stage, Nexus. I'm really struggling to see where you can go beyond that, to be honest.
Yeah. I think the
footprint's got smaller.
Yeah.
I think that's for people far smarter than me, to be honest, to figure out. There, I suppose they're going to look at efficiency and medias. Probably getting as much surface area into the smallest amount of space possible, which you can see that's happened with K1, with the Micro, the K Plus, all the rest of it. I've seen that seems a natural progression, but there's not too much you can do. It really is quite simple using the tools out there to get a really good, efficient setup running. And yeah, we're sort of, there's conflicting every time we speak to Jos, he's of the opinion drums are stripping too much out. So, I mean, are we going to be looking at filters that strip more and more out of the water? I don't think it's a route I want to see things go down. So, yeah, I can't see. I think equipment-wise, we'll be looking at efficiency more and more, as a lot of industries are. So pumps getting more efficient, air pumps, all the rest of it. But yeah, there's not too much. If we look at the sort of the time period, I've been in the hobby, and what's actually changed in that time period, looking over the next 20 years to come, you're not going to see too many shifts in anything. I don't think. It's not really lacking anything, Chris, is it?
I think one interesting thing, I mean, it's not really filtration, but I think the way that we run the filtration, there could be some good developments there. So as in solar panel, batteries, power packs, the pumps get more and more efficient all the time. So that's the only really good future that I can see with regards to it.
Yeah. Right, let's have a look what else we've got. It's such a small little space I've got on here. There we go. I think that's probably the one we'll end on there. Anthony Day, how you doing, Anthony? I've been looking at parent core used in some farms and was shocked at the length of time they are used. Is there a time span they are used? When do they stop being parents? And how do you know the next in line, for example, Super Monster or Mona Lisa? Yeah, parent fish is an interesting one because this really varies from farm to farm. And I suppose it's all just down to the performance of the set that the breeders using. They know it's come to the end of the line when obviously they can't get the level of egg out that they're expecting, or the numbers on the spawning are down. But while everyone is producing, those guys will keep using it because obviously it's important for the continuity of the lineages. One that springs to mind straight away here is Nogami. I mean, phenomenal line, really stable line that he's got with consistent traits and characteristics. And my God, those parent fish, when you see them, they are hanging. They're terrible. They've got no body weight left on them. Some of his best Koraku parents are just plain outright Shiro Mujis now. No Benny left on them whatsoever. You would look at it and think, how the hell is he producing what he's producing from that? But obviously, he knows the fish. He's seen it in its heyday, and it's not about this at that point. It's about the offspring and what it's producing.
Yeah.
You know, the genetics are all there. You know, some guys have got really, really old parent fish. As of the last time I was in Japan, NND still had the parents, some of the parents from the original Umo Showa bloodline, which is phenomenal. Those fish are a serious age now. However, not being used because the other parents they've got are just far more efficient and getting a higher yield than the older ones that they've got in circulation. So, yeah, while ever they're doing the goods, they're going to keep using it unless obviously it dies or whatever goes on. Yeah,
it gets traded in for the younger model.
Yeah, that's it. And they're obviously always looking, you know, constantly every year they're looking for parent fish candidates from these spawnings. That's not something, you know, there are certain fish they will just not. Males more so than females tend to looking for them a lot more. But yeah, really consistently pulling fish out. And actually, speaking of NND, I'm not sure if they've been used. I haven't spoke to Fujo for a bit, but I've got a collection of male Showa out there, and 2 of those are actually being kept as potential parent candidates to be used this year. So I hope they are, because it gives me dibs at a nice free fish for next year. So fingers crossed.
Always a bonus.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. And I believe, Anthony, did you send me a question? I think you sent me a question. It might have been asking about Beppu Fish Farm, if I'd heard of them. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Yes, I have heard of Beppu. They're a little bit out of the way, off the beaten track, so not super accessible for getting fish over. But he was serious staff down at Sakai Fish Farm. So got a lot of knowledge there between them. And obviously, I should imagine the foundation, a lot of them lineages are Sakai fish as well. So, does some great stuff. And, you know, he's a more affordable breeder. Absolutely. He's not carrying the same sort of price tag at the likes of Sakai, but the shared DNA there. There's a lot of similarities in traits of fish. And it's got a good lineage. It's pretty solid. So, yeah, if there's nice fish there in the market, I'd expect them to be well priced and probably good quality for that price as well. Certainly a breeder that, as I get about more, you can establish a decent shipping route, one I'll be paying some attention to for sure. So there we go, folks. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Chris, for hopping in there.
You're welcome.
And adding a bit. So, once again, guys, I'll be back next week. And look forward to it. We've actually got, I think it's Satch coming on next week. One of the guys I see he's around at a few of my customers he deals with, and we're going to be looking at some koi development, sort of like from toe size selections, what to look for. So mixing it up a bit there, really splitting that down. It's sort of like ABC, what's your choice, and then hopefully showing some results. And bits and bobs like that, so you can gain a little bit of knowledge from that. Fingers crossed. So enjoy the rest of your evening, guys, and see you next week.